Hello and welcome to Michigan Weekend. I'm Bob Bishop, substituting for Fred Trost. Fred, as you can see, got caught with his proverbial trousers down recently, which explains why in this kind of weather he's a bit under the weather. He hopes to be back next week. Coming up, we'll show you more of those exciting big buck contest entries and talk about the super prizes to be awarded here on Michigan Weekend soon. Then, world-renowned catapult engineer Rodney Wolf will give us a few lessons in the resurging art of catapultry. That's plain old slingshots, folks. And fellas, grab your apron, paper, and pencil and take a culinary lesson from the old wildlife chef, Fred Trost. He'll prepare a venison roast guaranteed to knock your socks off. We all know it's not nice to fool Mother Nature now that winter's here, but when you see these unseasonably low prices on bikes, you'll want to spring to Meijer Thrifty Acres. Meijer spotlights a family of 10-speed bikes by Huffy, the Santa Fe style, featuring Positron 2 derailleur, gear pre-selection, and Huffy's exclusive Maze hand grips for added comfort. The Huffy family sports racing saddles, dual caliper center pole hand brakes, reflective rat trap pedals, and more. Check out your choice of a 24-inch boys model, 26-inch men's or women's, or the 27-inch men's 10-speed for a low $84.88. Why not outfit your family with the Huffy family? From your one-stop Christmas shopping store, Meijer Thrifty Acres. Now that the rifle deer season is over, many of you probably have gotten your trophy bucks, but you probably don't have them mounted yet. We thought for a nostalgic look we would bring Greg Ross in from Kalamazoo to show us his buck that he got in 1961. Tell us about it, Greg.
All right, Bob. I took him in the afternoon of the third day. First time I saw him, he was, believe it or not, only about 6 feet from me. I was looking around one side of a great big white pine tree, and he was looking around the other side. I shot him with a 30-06, and he went about 75 yards. The unfortunate thing was there was another hunter that had his sights on the deer for almost 100 yards and was waiting for a better shot. And as he walked up, all he could do was say, "Almost mine, almost mine."
How old were you?
I was 16. 16.
You won at least one award with it.
Yes, in 61, 62 were about the last years that they had them, but what happened was the Detroit Free Press used to have a deer contest every year, much like what you're having right now. And that particular year, 1961, I tied for the most points contest with a gentleman from Coldwater, Michigan, and my hometown was originally Hillsdale. He got his in his backyard, and I had to go all the way to Rogers City.
You were also featured on the Old Michigan Outdoors show with Morton F.
That's correct. In film only. When we were coming back from the Rogers City area hunting, we stopped at a deer checking station in Alpena, and Howard Shelley was there from Morton F's crew, and they took a few pictures of me, and I was on the program for a while.
How successful a deer hunter are you? Is it luck or is it skill or what?
I would say it's a real combination of both, Bob. I have taken a dozen deer in Michigan, and I think I've hunted in Michigan a total of 14 years. I work at it. I'm a dedicated hunter, but I believe that no matter how much skill you have, there's still a lot of luck involved.
What's your secret, briefly?
Still hunting. I walk very little, I sit for long periods of time, and I move just as little as I possibly can. And I always see deer. I always see deer. But sometimes they just don't have horns, and other times they look like an elk.
Okay. Greg Ross, thank you very much for bringing the mount around to show the viewers, and continued success.
Thank you, Bob.
Let's go to some show and tell now and look at some of the color photos of the big buck contest entrants that have come in so far. First of all, Robert Schaefer from Detroit shot a 13-pointer near Watersmeet in the western UP on opening day with a rifle. It's a pretty fine-looking deer. Robert Husak from Chesaning, that's my hometown, folks. Got an 11-pointer the opening day with a shotgun. He got it in the Carroll Wildlife Area in Saginaw County. Next, Gary Endstrasser. With a bow during bow season, a 12-pointer. Shot it in Janes Township of Saginaw County. He is from Saginaw. A lady, Carla J. McCallum, shot an 8-pointer the 19th of November in White Cloud area. And for Carla, we think we'll give her a prize for the most realistic display of a trophy buck. Larry Bright shot a 7-pointer on opening day in the Baldwin area. He's from Fenville. And Earl Fuller shot this 28-point monster with a shotgun in the Williamston area. There's quite a story in the State Journal in the Lansing area, a photo by Frank Manville that you probably read if you're in the mid-Michigan area. Let's take a look at some of those big buck contest prizes, shall we? There are 7 big prizes in all, specifically for deer hunters, and here they are. First, a classic, the Winchester Model 94 Antlered Game Commemorative. It's a 30-30 lever action. It's a real collector's item. For a gun that's a gem to use, the Remington Model 742 ADL semi-automatic 30-06, good for any North American big game. A carbine that has lots of class is the Marlin 336C. It's a lever action 30-30, the kind of gun Marlin is famous for. A good gun for a young deer hunter or the sportsman who's willing to accept the challenge, the Ruger 1B single-shot 30-06 rifle. If you hunt southern Michigan and enjoy upland hunting as well, here's the Mossberg 600 12-gauge pump with ventilated rib and an extra slug barrel. And how about this one? A Thompson Center 50 caliber Hawkins powder black rifle kit, one of the top muzzle loaders in use today. And you can join the growing sport of archery, deer hunting, with the Outer Astro Stinger compound bow, perfect for the ultimate challenge in deer hunting. There are 7 big prizes in all that the top winners will choose from in our Big Buck contest, televised the weekend of December 16th and 17th. The award show has been put back 1 week in order to better administer the contest. We at Michigan Weekend can think of no better tool to increase your outdoor and hunting skills than this detailed map index to all of Michigan's 83 counties. It's available through Michigan Out of Doors magazine.
A state highway map is fine for traveling the main roads, getting to the big cities, but face it, if you're a hunter or an outdoor person of any kind, you're going to want to get off of the main roads. You're going to want to take the shortcuts. You're going to want to explore new areas without getting lost. All of the county roads are here, in detail, by name, in the Michigan County Maps and Recreation Guide. Send $7 to MUCC County Maps, Lansing 48909. Get out and enjoy the backcountry of Michigan. Send for your map book today.
With us now is Rodney Wolf, a design engineer with the Weber Tackle Company, who's into something new, as you can see, or maybe it's something old. Rodney, this looks to be a very basic slingshot. It's what probably most of us started at. Why don't you get into catapultry? Tell us all about it.
Well, okay, the hand catapult or slingshot is a fairly ancient toy, at least among this century. It doesn't go back more than about a century and a half before rubber was invented, but what I'm involved with here is a little more sophisticated slingshot than some of us are used to. We've seen back when natural rubber became difficult to obtain by youngsters cutting up inner tubes when the switch to synthetic rubber came around World War II, commercial catapults became predominant. This being a very early model, this in fact was the product that put Whammo Manufacturing in business in 1948.
And that's probably as far as most people who ever experienced a slingshot got. In and out as a kid, and that's it.
Pretty much so, although an awful lot of people that are presently in the National Catapultry Association are the older group, 40 years old and older, who remember cutting up the Model T inner tube tires.
Okay, we all know what the old ones look like. Show us a little bit about this one, for example, and the design characteristics.
Okay, now this is kind of a revolutionary new product on the market. It incorporates several technological advancements in the sport, perhaps the most important of which is the molded tapered rubber tube. This is not a conventional rubber tube used for surgical purposes. This is specially molded to achieve greater efficiency and much higher velocity, nearly twice the velocity that conventional bands can achieve, and yet has a lower draw force. In other words, its contraction is much more efficient.
Okay. Now the tines, the bows are offset. What's the purpose
Okay,
for
now
that?
this is important. It's important that a shooter keep the plane of his stretched bands horizontal to the ground so that they're symmetrical. When tipped one way or the other, the bands don't necessarily pull exactly the same. However, the most comfortable position for the outstretched arm is approximately 45 degrees. And this is just combining the best of both worlds. Rather than taking the more conventional shape, and as some shooters do, tilt it or shoot straight up, which causes some strain on the wrist.
Okay, strain on the wrist. Is that the purpose for this?
Well, yes and no. Many shooters feel that a wrist brace, in other words, an item that braces the strain against the wrist from the drawing weight of the bands, is helpful in shooting accuracy for stabilizing the wrist against shaking and so on. It is not so needed on the newer models that have these tapered bands because the draw weight is very low in the first place. However, some shooters still prefer the wrist brace.
Okay. Okay, what do you say you give us a demonstration?
Okay. This is my own personal hand-built model. I'm the one that had to carve the patterns for these other production models, and so I made myself a nice little laminated wood one.
What do you use for ammo?
I'm using a 3/8-inch steel ball here. Weighs about 3.5 grams, for anybody that knows what a gram is. The target that I'm shooting at here, and I'll probably miss it while I'm talking, is, just nicked it.
Close enough.
A target that's used in National Catapultry Association tournaments, counting 2 points per hit from a distance of 33 feet, which is an even 10 meters. And it's fairly simple scoring. If the target's not standing up there, it's a hit. And if it is standing up there, it's not a hit. And 50 shots are taken in 10 rounds of 5 shots each.
Okay.
There, this one for you.
Let's say I'm a complete novice at this. What would it take for me to get into it?
Well, first of all, not too much money. Catapultry is one of the least expensive sports to get into, especially if you compare it to archery or riflery. As far as shooting, most people can start out just instinctively and not do too poorly. There's a few basics that you might want to take note of. First of all is to make sure that you're holding onto the thing properly, a simple handle grip. The grip on the pouch is important. In fact, perhaps the most important thing in shooting a catapult is developing a good release. Okay, I'll drop that in there for you to save you a little time. If you hold the bands down so that they hang, it's a little bit easier to load it up, holding it between the first and second joint of the first finger and the thumb. And as far as drawing goes, now I'll teach you as an instinctive shooter as opposed to a direct sighter because I'm an instinctive shooter. And maybe you'd want to run around the other side of me here.
Sure.
Drawing is similar to archery, and you said you're an archer. So you wouldn't draw to an anchor point, but freely out in space. And you just, through peripheral vision, notice where the catapult is pointed and slowly release the tension on your fingers to achieve the release. And the important thing for an instinctive shooter, or a direct sighter for that matter, is that you note where each, oh here, I'll give you a ball, is that you note where each shot hits so that you can correct your built-in sight, in a sense. Your built-in sight being your brain and your kinesthetic coordination.
Okay, knock that one down.
Well, now you're putting me hard to the test.
Good shot. Okay, it's a growing sport, right?
That's very true. The sales and
Why the
equipment...
resurgence?
Well, it's a resurgence, yes and no. It's a resurgence in the development of equipment in the sport. Nothing this sophisticated has previously been on the market up until about a year and a half ago. And the National Catapultry Association, which was founded in 1976, has been doing a lot to promote the sport of shooting. There have been a lot of shooters all around the country and world, for that matter, wanting to shoot, but there's never been any organized approach to it with the National Catapultry Association, which puts out a quarterly journal called Modern Catapultry. This publication keeps catapulters around the world up to date on what's going on in the sport. And the National Catapultry Association is also involved with preparing materials, literature, and so on for getting catapultry classes started in schools and recreational departments, and in getting local clubs
Where can
started.
people write if they're interested to find out more?
Okay, they can write to the National Catapultry Association, 129 McDill Avenue, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, 54481.
Okay, and we might also mention that you can also write to the Michigan Out of Doors magazine, and the super for which is on the screen now. Okay, let's take a couple of more shots here, Rod, and see what you can do.
Wondered if you wanted a demonstration of the power of these new instruments.
Please do. Let's see.
Okay, what I've got sitting
rigged
up
up
here, I don't know if the camera will catch this, but we've got 4 slabs of wood sitting up there with about an inch spacing between them. And I've got a lead ball here, which I will, I think, shoot through rather easily. This is a little more power than the cut-up inner tube used to have in the past. This is roughly coming out of here at about 400 feet per second, compared to conventional bands, which is about 250 feet per second. So that's well more than double the energy.
Okay. Rod Wolf, thank you very much for coming to the studio and showing us your catapults, if you will. And those of you who are interested, you can write. Bird watchers, deer hunters, and girl watchers, Meijer has a Why Pay More message to help your hobby. Focus on this. This week at your one-stop Christmas shopping store, Meijer Thrifty Acres has many fine selections of binoculars, including these by Empire. Check out this wide-angle 8x40 power pair or this even wider 7x35 power extra wide-angle set. Both feature coated optics, which cut down on glare and increase viewing image by as much as 50%. These fine instruments are available this week, your choice, for only $39.97. Why pay more for your outdoor equipment? Check out the bargains at your one-stop Christmas shopping store, Meijer Thrifty Acres. If you're among the skilled, successful deer hunters to get a patch like this one, like some of us, we have a culinary treat for you. Get your speed pencil ready because this venison roast recipe is not in the Fall Michigan Weekend recipe booklet. The venison shoulder roast is comparable to a chuck roast in beef, so it's a tasty cut of meat that's well suited to a pot roast recipe. The first step is to roll the roast in flour that you've seasoned with salt and pepper. Then brown that roast in a pan of hot oil or bacon grease. You're not ready to try to cook the roast right now, you're just browning it, searing it on the outside with a crispy golden brown crust. So make sure your frying pan is good and hot. If you cook it too slowly, you won't get the seared crust that you want. But when it does turn that golden brown on all sides, transfer it to a roasting or baking dish that has a lid. This is where the real cooking will take place. Next, take a half cup of red wine, just ordinary table wine or cooking wine, nothing expensive, and pour it over the roast. Then do the same thing with a half cup of tomatoes, or tomato juice is fine. Now here's one of Fred's favorite ingredients, horseradish. Take 4 tablespoons, and that's 4 heaping tablespoons if you like it like Fred does, and spread the horseradish over the top of the meat. It loses its strength, but adds a great flavor as it cooks. Half a teaspoon of salt is all you need to sprinkle over the top. And next we'll add a package of dry onion soup mix. This also adds great flavor, and if this recipe fails, we'll make some venison chip dip. Then the last thing you do before covering it and putting it in the oven is to add a full cup of water. Make sure you pour this around the sides and not over the top, or you'll wash off all those good ingredients you spent so much time sprinkling on the meat. After it's been in the oven for 2 or 2.5 hours at 325 degrees, you can add some vegetables if you want. Peeled carrots, potatoes, onions, celeries. About 45 minutes before you want to take the roast out of the oven for your meal. And if you've done this anywhere close to these instructions, this meat will just fall off the bone and be so tasty, you'll wonder why you didn't cook it this way in the first place. Try that recipe. Your family will probably ask for more. Let's go to more show and tell now and look at some photos of the master angler entries. This group of black crappies caught by Norm McDonough of Oxford was caught in Lapeer County. The large one is 2 pounds 10 ounces. Look at the smile on that boy's face. Gary Feet caught this smallmouth bass weighing 5 pounds 2 ounces in Sheboygan County, and he is from Freeland. This large tiger muskie, 24 pounds 2.5 ounces, caught by Henry Dornbus from Muskegon. He caught it in Mason County in Hamlin Lake on a Rapala. Kevin Ships. Look Look at the way he holds that trout. He's learned an old photographic trick. Hold it way out in front of the camera and it looks much bigger. This one weighs, though, 16 pounds, 2 ounces. Kevin is from Holland, and he caught this one in Lake Michigan in Allegheny County. Ed Sicotti's brown trout here. It's an inland brown trout, weighs 6 pounds, 8 ounces. He caught it in Kalkaska County, and he is from Kalkaska. Jimmy W. Birmingham. He's from Alpena, and he caught this in Lake Huron, right off Alpena. And it's a 16 pound, 8 1/4 ounce Lake Huron brown trout. Ron Hawkswell caught another brown trout weighing in at 17 1/4 pounds, 4 ounces. He caught it in Muskegon County, and he is from North Muskegon. And this channel cat caught by Greg Durr in the Ausable River, believe it or not, in Iosco County. And a largemouth bass by Bruce Torp of South Haven. He caught it in Van Buren County in Munson Lake and weighs 6 pounds, 11 ounces. And this yellow perch by Dan Shively in Kentwood. He caught it in Mackinac County. It's 2 pounds, 6 3/4 ounces. Ice fishing is another growing sport in Michigan, and Meijer sports people ask, why pay more? Check out cold weather gear and ice fishing equipment today at Meijer Thrifty Acres.
Ice fishing can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a bit rugged if you're not prepared. For protection from the wind, check out the 5x5 ice fishing tent by Outdoor Venture. This week at Meijer, it's $6 off, only $39.88. For $13.88, pick up a Swedish ice auger that will help you bore a 6-inch hole through the ice and nothing flat. And the Schoolie rod and reel, complete with spring bobber and lure, this week it's only $3.97. Check out everything you need for ice fishing, including bait, in the sporting goods department at Meijer.
Our thanks again to Rod Wolf of the National Catapultry Association and the Weber Tackle Company for stopping by with these catapults, with these slingshots. Rod, how big a thing is it nationally speaking?
Well, as far as actual members, there's about 100 members around the country and world. Although there's hundreds of thousands of catapulters around the country, every male kid has shot a slingshot. And this is just a sport to help promote it as a sport.
And it's growing.
Definitely.
Where can people write again now if they're interested?
National Catapultry Association, 129 McDill Avenue, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, 54481.
And, of course, the Michigan Outdoors magazine. Thanks very much, Rod.
My pleasure.
Our sponsors remind you there's a whole new galactic Michigan out there to experience. Call the Michigan Travel Bureau's toll-free number to get ski conditions, ice conditions for you fishermen, open water fishing reports, and winter carnivals, events, and a whole raft of things to keep you active this winter. Well, that's it for this week. Get well, Fred, and we'll see you again next week here on Michigan Weekend. Michigan Weekend is brought to you in part by Meijer Thrifty Acres and by Michigan Outdoors magazine. Join us next week for more outdoor features, an update on the Big Buck Contest, and be sure the Santa in your family is watching our feature on Christmas gift ideas for the sportsman.